It's hard to think of a show that I was more excited for when it was announced than Lord of the Rings of Power. A show set during the second age of Middle-earth, before The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings movies. That sounded amazing to me. Being able to get backstory and a little bit more info on Sauron, Elrond, all the Rons, Galadriel, Finrod, all these characters that as I've researched the second age and all this stuff in preparation of the show, I was really excited to see on the screen. And being a huge fan of the original Peter Jackson films and even the Hobbit films, although they weren't as good, they were still entertaining and fun. As a fan of those films, I was super excited to get this prequel series. And then the trailers came out, and I lost a lot of the excitement I had. And then the trailers kept coming out, and excitement turned to fear. Going into these 2 episodes, I tried not to let any fear that I had from the trailers affect what I thought about the show. But after watching these 2 episodes, I'm here to say that every fear that I had going into the show came true. And I'm going to be honest, I don't like trashing films and TV shows. I know a ton of people put a ton of work into the show over years. And Amazon put a crap ton of money into this show. So I'm not going to try to trash it or just say a ton of negative things, because I know the work that was put into it. However, the show had so much potential, and I'm so disappointed in what we've gotten so far, that this is going to be mostly negative. With all that being said, let's answer the question, should you watch The Rings of Power? And right off the bat, just in case you got to get somewhere or you don't want to watch this whole video, it's up to you. If you're a Lord of the Rings fan, maybe. If you're someone trying to get into Lord of the Rings, don't start with this. Go watch the original Peter Jackson movies. Before we go into anything with story or characters or anything like that, I want to just address that this show looks incredible. The VFX on this show is insane. The set pieces, the cities, like when you first see Valinor, is so beautiful, and I can't wait to see Numenor. Like, the set pieces and the world of Middle-earth just looks so good in this film. I'd even say a couple character designs look good as well. Costumes, all that stuff. I know some people might disagree with me on that, and that's perfectly fine. I see where you're coming from, but I personally enjoyed it. That being said, that's pretty much the only good thing I can say about this show. The thing that stands out to me the most, before I even go into any technicality, is that this show is so freaking boring. I had to force myself to get through both episodes. They're both an hour long, and nothing seems to happen in them. When I started the first episode, besides the bullying scene, the whole exposition setup was great. I loved that montage. Seeing the silhouette of Sauron and watching the elves go from Valinor into Middle-earth, that was awesome. And then the actual story got started. We picked up with Galadriel trying to find Sauron's fortress and all that. And it just all fell downhill from there. I mean, this show is so boring. I don't know where they're going in episode 3. I don't know where they're going to start off, but I can almost guarantee that you could have started the show where we are in episode 3, and most viewers wouldn't even miss anything. People wouldn't even be confused. This show is so slow. It's 2 hours, and there's nothing in those 2 hours that makes me excited for episode 3. The only reason I'm going to keep watching is because I know that Numenor's coming up and all these other things, but the show doesn't give you any reason to keep watching. They try to at the end of episode 1 with Meteor Man, but after that, you don't have a reason to keep watching. Which is never something you want to say about a show. Now, I will be fair. Some shows, you do got to get through the beginning before it starts getting good. But even in those shows, there's glimpses of what the show will be or could be. And I'm just not seeing a lot of that here. Another reason why this show just isn't that great is the dialogue. The dialogue, oh my gosh. There were scenes that made me cringe. The dialogue here sucks. I feel like Tolkien had a very good reputation of having poetic dialogue in his books. And again, I haven't read majority of them, and I'm not a huge Tolkien nerd or know a ton about the world. But the Peter Jackson films, and even the little bit of The Hobbit I read, the dialogue was poetic. It seemed like medieval age talk that we would experience from knights and queens and kings and all this stuff. But here it almost tries to do that, but falls well short. Dialogue is bad, and it's not like Star Wars bad where you can kind of get where they're coming from. It's just bad. The other thing is just the adaptation of the source material is kind of bad. I understand that Amazon does not have the rights to, I know I'm going to say this wrong, but which is pretty much like the prequel to everything before Lord of the Rings and Hobbit. I know they don't have the rights to it, and that makes it kind of tough, but that also makes me question why make a show if you don't have the rights to everything. But if you research it, it's like kind of hard to understand, at least from the little research I did. But they don't have the rights to that, which means they can't do certain things that actually happened in the books, which is kind of disappointing. And I feel like what they ended up going with is nowhere near as close as cool. But I give Amazon a bit of a free pass with that. That being said, the story also just isn't that compelling. You go in, and if you've watched the Peter Jackson films, and that's all the experience and knowledge you have of Tolkien's world of Middle-earth, then you're going to go into the show excited to see how they made the Rings of Power, the backstory, more going into Sauron, all this stuff. 2 hours in, and you're not getting any of that. I mean, obviously they're setting that up with Elrond and, I'm going to say this name wrong too, Celebrimbor and the dwarves, all that stuff. They're setting that up, but it is taking forever. And in fact, it doesn't seem like the main storyline. I feel like it should be, that there should be heavy focus on it. They don't have to get to the making of the rings within the first 2 episodes, duh. But like, they need to emphasize the importance of this, and they're just not. They're completely ignoring it for side stories that, to be honest, I don't care about. Everything with Galadriel is fine. It's not interesting to me. I think it's kind of boring and really cringe. Like, the dialogue they give her is not great. It's a fine storyline. I think it's an interesting idea to have on the one end, the main front, as it should be, the creation of the rings, and on the other is the elves trying to hunt down Sauron. Like, I think that's 2 great opposite storylines that could be converged together really well. However, it seems like the main emphasis is on Galadriel's story, when it probably shouldn't be. I think she should have a huge part in the story. And I know that in the book she kind of didn't during this period, but I think I'm fine with Amazon making her a more central character. I just don't think they're doing it very well. The Harfoots and Meteor Man. Just everything with the Harfoots is pretty bad. Acting's alright. I don't know. I just don't feel like they have a ton of reason to be there in the story. I feel like Meteor Man was given there just so that they would have a reason to be there. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the Harfoot storyline, but to be honest, in the first 2 episodes, it didn't take up a ton of runtime, so whatever. The elf-human relationship thing, I'm forgetting their names. I think the lady's name is Browin, something like that. That could be a totally interesting premise. Not the romance. I don't care for the romance, whatever. We've seen it before. We've seen elf-human relationship before. Whatever. I think it would be so much more interesting and compelling if we went into what it's like for the humans to be watched over by elves and how they feel, and are they oppressed by that? Like, I feel like we only got a glimpse, and if they fleshed that out more, I think it could have given the world more of a realistic feel, and maybe how to see the side of the humans on why they sided with Morgoth in the First Age. I will say, although I'm not a fan of majority of the characters in this story, I think Elrond is probably my favorite character in the show. He and Durin's relationship is cool. I think it's quite petty why Durin was like mad at him. I'm not going to go into that. And I think everything with the Rings of Power and Morgoth and Sauron are interesting, but they don't focus on any of those things enough. And if they can expound on this, if they can focus in more on this, I think the show has a better potential. But I think it's going to be very hard for Amazon to get new people into the show because of how long it's taking to set things up. And I get it. Lord of the Rings is notorious for being long films. Same with The Hobbit. But the world building and the story within those movies was so much better than this. The characters were so much better than this. The dialogue was so much better than this. You can't get people interested in the show enough by name and looks. You gotta give them a good enough story, and the story's just not there. I hope it improves. I really do hope this show gets better by the time it's over. So maybe you're asking, should I even bother watching this? I'd say probably not. Wait until episode 8 comes out. Wait until that drops. And then if people are speaking a little bit higher of it, maybe check it out. But I don't think this show is worth watching the 2 hours right now that is out. It's bland. It lacks content. You like, oh, but I really want to see all the good visuals. Look them up on the internet. I think they're cooler as pictures anyway. Overall, the Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power is just a huge disappointment. I had high hopes when this show was announced, and they've mostly been diminished by now. It's truly sad to see what we've gotten, and I truly do want the show to get better. I truly do want this show to do well. It's Lord of the Rings. I loved those movies. But that's it for me. Let me know what you thought of Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power in the comment section below. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Did you even watch it? Let me know down in the comments below. But as for now, that's it from me. And until next time, peace out, bro skillets.